Hi, and welcome to Breaking Free. My name's Kim Wagner, and today I'm interviewing the lovely Deborah Eden Tull. Welcome, Eden.
Hi, Kim. I'm happy to be here with you.
Nice to see you. So I'll just tell everyone a little bit about you. Eden is a founder of the Mindful Living Revolution. She's a Zen meditation and mindfulness teacher, author, activist, and sustainability educator. She teaches the integration of compassionate awareness into every aspect of our lives. Deborah spent 7.5 years training as a monk in a silent Zen monastery and has been living in and teaching about sustainable communities for over 25 years. It sounds very interesting, Eden.
I'm happy to share however much about it would be useful today.
Yeah. Okay, so Eden, what I'm wondering is if you could sort of talk to us a little bit about how your knowledge and how your teachings could help the everyday person in their life. There's a lot of disconnect, lots of suffering, overwhelm, depression, anxiety in the world. And I'm thinking that a lot of the information that you share would be very beneficial to all of our watchers today.
Sure, I'll dive in. We can start by just acknowledging how many people in today's world are feeling some level of disconnect. One of my books is called Relational Mindfulness, a handbook for reconnecting, for deeper connection within ourselves, with each other, with our planet. And this is certainly a day and age where many people are moving and working at not their authentic pace, where there's certain habits, collective habits of distraction, of engaging in ways that create less than the deep and genuine connection that we really need. What I would say is all of this is a reflection of the myth of separation being very pervasive on our planet right now. And this illusion or myth that we are somehow separate from one another, separate from the earth, even separate from our deeper selves. This illusion or the myth that's really at the core of so much human suffering, so much struggle. And so we can certainly look at our lives and say, oh, well, what's not working? What do I need to fix, solve, or change? But even that question, what do I need to fix, solve, or change, is coming through the lens of this myth of separation. And what I mean by that, it's coming from a habit of standing outside of ourselves, looking in, judging, assessing, measuring, comparing. It's having an adversarial relationship with this being. And if that's happening, then I'm going to feel disconnected within myself. I'm going to feel disconnected with other people, with my engagements in this life. And we are not separate. There is no separation. There's also nothing that needs to be fixed, solved, changed. That kind of approach confuses us. I like to offer the teaching that self-improvement is a myth, but it's a myth that a lot of people are caught up on. If we really want to create long-term sustainable change in our lives, it has to begin with letting go of having an adversarial relationship with ourselves, letting go of perceiving through this lens of me and my little bubble, my separate self, and beginning to step back into larger and more expansive awareness. First, we have awareness of this being who is suffering and struggling, and that helps us to step into the role of being a compassionate mentor, a compassionate presence for this person, which begins to change everything. Yeah. And then we continue to step back and get a sense that we were never separate. There is no separation. The lens through which we're perceiving changes, and non-separation, or knowing the wholeness that is who we are, that is intrinsic, that is our birthright, that is always here. This is about perception change. This is about stepping back from our addiction, we might call it, to the conditioned mind. And by that I mean the constant narrative, stories, reference to who I've been, who I am in my limited perception of self.
And who I feel I should be, because with society now, we're told you should be this, or this is the perfect person, this is what you need to do to be happy, what you need to have, what you need to achieve. Very ego-driven, in my opinion.
You've got it. Thank you. Very ego-driven. And so what happens with that is we're literally projecting authority onto the external world, authority onto ideas about how we should be, as you just named, made up standards that we've been fed, but we're turning our attention away from both who we really are, our authentic being, and also we're turning our attention away from developing inner authority, developing a relationship with our center, with ourself, where we can truly sense and know what it is that this person needs. We can sense with love who this person is beyond all the judgment, and sort of get off track of what you were just pointing to as looking outside ourselves and trying to meet a whole lot of standards. Yeah.
It can be a little exhausting in the world today, because it is everywhere. You're bombarded from birth, really, and everywhere you look, you are told. So it's really nice to know that if you just can learn to stop and look inside yourself, that you actually can connect with yourself and then start healing.
Yes. And a couple things I would say about that. One is, it's really, really important that people learn to replace the habit of judgment with curiosity. We might call that step one, because when we're locked into this judgment, and some people aren't even aware of it, some people are aware, wow, there's a constant assessing, measuring, comparing going on. There's constant judgment within and out. That is so loud, we might say, that it keeps us from listening more deeply. It keeps us from hearing what we might call the still small voice within. It keeps us from sensing a much larger reality. It's very loud. So the first step is replacing judgment with curiosity, and just learning, even as people are listening right now, if you can pause. You can close your eyes if you want, but you don't need to. Just take in a couple of conscious breaths. And simply become curious for a moment about the state of your mind, just noticing the pace and quality of your mind. Become curious about what you're feeling, and allow yourself to notice, to feel any emotion moving through you, energy in motion. No need to go off into stories about what or why, just feeling and allowing. And then moving your awareness into your body more subtly with curiosity, just noticing. What sensations, what temperature, what am I present to? Very, very simple practice. Goes deeper and deeper and deeper, so that we learn to live in curiosity instead of judgment. Both being curious about this being, from what we call in Zen beginner's mind. Who is this being really? Not all that I'm typically labeling her or thinking is limited, or something much more vast. And also becoming curious about our moments of suffering. So instead of being stuck in that, we begin to have space around it and choice. And when I say suffering, sometimes this can be very dramatic, intense moments, but one of the definitions of suffering from Buddhism that I find so helpful is simply subtle, incessant dissatisfaction. Subtle, incessant dissatisfaction. So it's like when we're listening to that tape, it really keeps us from being willing to listen much more deeply to what is here, what is already whole. Loving this person both where they are smooth and where they are cracked. How about that for a change? Instead of this wild race towards self-improvement to try to meet made-up standards that are based on nothing useful.
Absolutely. And they just cause more stress, and then they cause more overwhelm. And then you feel like a failure, and it just goes, it's just a circle of pain and suffering. It just goes around and around.
Well stated. Yeah. And then when we're doing that within ourselves, we're also not available for genuine connection with one another, which is something we crave deeply. We crave love deeply, because I would say who we are authentically is love.
It's love.
But if we're doing that kind of judging and trying to meet standards and all of that inside ourselves, we're not available for just the level of presence and acceptance and openness. That's a place where we naturally remember our inherent connection with one another.
I think that's beautiful.
Within and out. Yeah. Yeah.
I know when my children were younger, I bought the book Buddhism for Mums, or Buddhism for Mothers, and I found it really interesting because I would get a bit intense. You know, you'd freak out a little bit because you'd get a bit stressed. And I do remember it was like taking every minute that you've got, or everyday situations, and turning them into mindfulness or meditation. So, for example, you're washing the dishes, and as you're washing the dishes, feel the dishes and just breathe deeply and just experience the sensations. And I actually found that to be really helpful because I'm so busy because I've got these kids and I'm running around all the time and there's so much work to do. But actually, by stopping and just taking a minute at a time, it actually made a huge difference in my life and my children's lives, because I was calmer and I was present with them. And the change in the relationship between myself and my children, for example, from then on, and then within the family and so forth, it was phenomenal because I was present. I wasn't judging, wasn't thinking, I was just there, and it was really life-changing.
It is life-changing. It's very, very simple, but life. So often we're focused on the doing, and we're focused on the product, trying to get this thing done, trying to get to a certain end goal, that we completely lose the process, and we are not present for the process of what we're doing, the quality of connection. And I mean, you mentioned washing dishes, the quality of connection with you and this element called water that is part of our joy and our survival here. Water, a core element. And connection with your kids, being present enough to really balance, I would say, productivity, which is what many people are distracted by and even in a trance of, with attunement. We have to be balancing those two things. So at first, something like meditation or mindfulness might take the form of learning how to pause in the midst of that and attend within and slow down a bit. But then it becomes completely woven in to how we do what we do, how we do whatever we're doing. And I know for me, the awareness that our time here is short, the awareness that this life is not to be taken for granted, really inspires my heart's desire to dwell in presence with whatever I'm doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it obviously shows because you're spreading the information worldwide and making a huge difference.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what age were you when you went to the monastery, when you did the 7.5 years?
Monastery when I was 26.
Wow.
I was there for 7.5 years. And that was a moment in life when I was both as a long-term student of sustainability and ecological design, very aware of the state of our world and very aware of the degree to which greed, hate, and delusion had really confused human beings and our relationship with the earth. And at the same time, I was struggling inside myself at that age, very much seeking answers, seeking mentors. And one of the things that happens when you establish a practice is you really learn to mentor yourself. You learn to be a compassionate mentor wherever you are, or whomever you're with. And I would say everyone needs this. There's a term in Buddhism called Kalyanamitta, spiritual friend. We need to first become our own spiritual friend, if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah. And so from this place, from compassionate awareness, everything begins to change, but it really requires the willingness to graduate from focus on me and my little bubble, me and what's wrong with me and what I need to improve and solve and fix and change, this little bubble that so many of us are locked in. This is part of what we're invited to graduate from. Yeah.
That's incredible. So what I find is that, and you would see the same as well, is the ripple effect is quite powerful. So when you're with your students, because I know you do retreats and you do meditations and so forth, and you have guided meditations available. What I find is that obviously the person who is either with you or listening or learning, they learn and grow. They become more calm. They become more themselves. They look within, and they're expanding. And so then they take that home. They don't necessarily take the practice home, but they take their new self or their new awareness home. And then, for example, if the mother is calm and happy and present, then the children tend to be calm and happy and present. And then it just expands. And I'm thinking that the movement now, particularly with technology, being able to connect us, because look at us now, we're different countries, different time zones. So it can be quite powerful in a good way. We can spread the word, spread the love, and we can increase the vibration worldwide.
Yes, the ripple effect is a really important point. And one of my, I would say, challenges sometimes with modern day spirituality, meditation, mindfulness, sometimes things are presented just as this is for me and my healing. This path is just to address my struggles. And true spirituality goes much, much, much further than that. Any spiritual path that you commit to. We can talk about meditation. We can talk about awareness practice. Mindfulness extends from personal impact to interpersonal, transpersonal, societal, global. And so the point is to allow this, we might say, flame of awareness that we are committing to within ourselves and letting expand, to continually expand out to more and more places that we have not yet brought compassion to, that we have not yet brought consciousness to within ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just find that it's incredible because we all think in society now that we are just like, I'm Kim, you're Eden, but that's so not true. We are so connected. Our consciousness is connected. And it's really important to be open and compassionate as well to others because we don't know what they're dealing with as well. And I think we're very quick to judge because that's our society. But I think it's time to realize that it doesn't matter the race, the skin color, anything, the circumstances, we are all the same.
Well, I think that most people, if they were to investigate their own habit patterns of othering those who are different, they'd see that it all comes from the habit of othering themselves, othering the parts of themselves that they have been taught to judge, to be afraid of, to reject. And so much of what happens in a spiritual practice is being willing to open your eyes to the dividing line that you've created inside yourself simply because you've been conditioned, I would say, and conditioned by a society that maybe knows conditional rather than unconditional love, and then to heal this dividing line so that we're not seeing through such a dualistic lens anymore. This, but not that. It's about allowing consciously and welcoming everything into our own circle of acceptance and compassion. And then we show up in the world in a very different way. Yeah.
I'd agree. And I do feel though that it's starting to happen more. I think that the awareness is starting to happen more. So I'm hopeful that it's going to ease some suffering worldwide. Now you do lots of different things. You've just done a retreat in Finland, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. What's involved in your retreats? What are they about?
Yeah, so I just led a silent retreat in Finland last week, which was phenomenal. And in that kind of context, we're practicing awareness, we're practicing meditation, really in every moment, whether it's formal sitting meditation, walking meditation, relational mindfulness, which is a topic I've written a book on, or just sitting in our free time, being as fully present as we can with the natural world around us. this retreat that I'm about to start teaching 2 days from now in California at Esalen is more of a bit of a social component to that retreat. We won't be in silence, but we'll be practicing all the same things, and we'll be doing a lot of work regarding how to bring presence and how to bring conscious choice to our relationship with the state of the world on that particular retreat. And so every retreat has a different theme, but I know that in my own life, the experience of saying, I'm going to pause from my ordinary day-to-day life, from my habit patterns, even from my comfort zone, and go on this journey for 5 days, 7 days, whatever it is, knowing that that journey is going to shift and change something inside of me. And then when I return home, I bring a new set of awarenesses. I bring a new really set of choices. So much about having a practice is about acknowledging the choice we have in every moment. And before we come to practice, we don't really know that. When I say that, I'm talking about the choice to choose, let's say, wakefulness over fear, the choice to meet something that we've always labeled really dark and messy with complete compassion. This is transformative inside of ourselves. And as we've already covered, it completely affects how we relate in the world, how we show up to the world.
Just shifting your perspective a little bit. Yeah, can make a big difference to lots of situations.
Yes. And a basic teaching in meditation is that the quality of our life experience is determined by the focus of our attention. So most of us, when we first start meditating, we notice, wow, I've been giving a lot of attention, a lot of energy to my busy mind, to my limiting beliefs I didn't even know I had. In meditation, you're training yourself to let that go, to attend to presence, to be aware of awareness itself. And I would say to be aware that you are awareness itself. And this is a such larger experience and definition of who you are that it begins to create a lot of freedom in life.
And is that the basic topic of, or is that what you talk about with relational mindfulness with your book? That's the sort of thing that you're focusing on.
Yes, in relational mindfulness, we're looking a lot, and I'll go back to the transition I made from living as a Zen Buddhist monk to living out in the world. I had been given the invitation to live in silence for many years in a spiritual community that was steeped in practice and consciousness. And then suddenly I was living in the busy city of Los Angeles and teaching, realizing, okay, now my invitation is to bridge for myself and others. How does exactly what we learn on the meditation cushion translate directly to all of our engagements with one another, to the busyness of a day-to-day life where we might not have that much silence, to our conversations at work and with loved ones, to the realm of dating, to conflict? How does it translate there? And so I still am very passionate about that topic. But the whole point is to learn that we can be meditating, in a sense, all the time. Meditating is not sitting in stillness. It's certainly not navel gazing. It's something so much larger. And it's something we can be doing in every moment of our life. It's about, where is my attention right now? Relaxing into presence. And that takes a lot of courage. Many people don't know how addicted they are to the thinking mind. How confused they are, believing that they are their thoughts and they are their emotions. And again, I'm going to emphasize that who we are is so much more. So we know that in moments when we drop into real peace, real connectedness, but we're here, I would suggest, to live that, not just to experience it from time to time.
Agreed, yeah. And everyone has their things that they have to deal with, and it's just how you choose to perceive them and see them and react, I guess.
Yes.
Or not react.
Have conscious response, we might say.
Conscious response.
And as we talk about these things, it's just important to name that a lot of this language is out there in the world now. We can say, oh, I just need to choose love rather than fear. But none of this is meant to be taken conceptually. it all becomes real and alive when we practice, when we bring these things we're talking about into the body, into our day-to-day ordinary life. If we don't, then we can certainly understand these things conceptually, but we can be participating in what we might call spiritual bypassing. Like, oh, I'm just trying to keep things pretty and light. I'm trying to get to an elevated or enlightened place. I can just push aside the difficulties. And we can't. No. There is no pushing aside, and there is no turning away. So it's about bringing these kinds of teachings that we're talking about down and into our bodies, down and into our everyday life. And we have to find the courage and the willingness to do so. It doesn't take extra time for anyone listening who's saying, but I don't have enough time, I'm so stressed out. It's not a matter of that. What are you doing with the time you have?
Correct. And it needs to be not necessarily big to start with, just snippets here and there, a second here, a second there, and then the habit grows. And it feels really good. It feels like coming home, is how I would explain it.
Because it's who we naturally are.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, wow, Eden. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been so wonderful speaking to you. I could talk all day.
Yeah, certainly. And I love that we get to use technology in this conscious way and connect across the world like this. So
absolutely. So if anyone would like any more information, the website is www.deborahEdenHall.com, and I'll put the details below as well.
And it's DeborahEdenTull.com with a T.
Yes.
So thank you again so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, have a great day.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.